Welcome back, Unlimited Power fans. Today we're talking about some tips and tricks and also a little bit about the starter deck on Moff Gideon. Me and Mark played a couple of games on the channel the other night. And,
we did.
You can watch them if you want. And I had some criticism of the Gideon deck. I actually struggled to do well with it. It's command, villainy, and vigilance. And if you're here, then I'm going to assume you know a little bit about how the deck works. You've played the starter deck a few times. If you haven't, I guess go do that, because if you haven't done that, it's going to be hard to grab all the information from this video. So I think he's actually kind of a complex leader.
Very much so. And as a starter deck, it's not balanced to be like tournament effective against tuned constructive decks, but it's balanced against the other starter decks. So it's a fun experience to play to introduce you to the game and some of the concepts of the game.
Yeah, so in the games I played, I feel like he's got a lot of synergy with 3 or less cost units.
Yeah.
But the starter deck really didn't take full advantage of that. And he also needs to be deployed in an early turn to like reap the full benefit of the ability he has, which is like when he is deployed, each friendly unit that costs 3 or less gets +1/+0 and gains overwhelm.
Because being undeployed, he can only grant that to 1 unit a turn. But when he's deployed, all the units get it that cost 3 or less.
So you want to get him out when you have a few things on the board, and then you want to try and make it that he will survive, because he's only doing 3 damage, though. He doesn't seem to linger very long, right? Like this, the second you were able to bring in your leader, you can usually kill him off pretty quickly.
On the one hand, yes. On the other hand, 6 hit points is not trivial to get rid of. A takedown will kill a unit with 5 or less hit points, so he's immune to takedown. You should have lots of little units around, or at least a few little units around, so a Power of the Dark Side probably won't kill him, which means you're going to need either a Rival's Fall or actually hit them in the face to try and kill
him. Yeah, so this is what the list looks like. I don't think there's too much to say on this list, but
is this the base starter deck?
This is indeed the base starter deck. This is what you get in the Moff Gideon list. And you can find that information all on the website. So, how does the starter deck play, I guess, right? So, you have some good low-cost green units in there, but I never felt there was really enough to take full advantage of his leader ability. I thought Calculated Lethality is a pretty nice card, but I can't help but feel like Vanquish would just be more useful, right? Because, there's a lot of time...
What? You spend 3 to kill a unit that costs 3 or less. It's just not amazing, really, when you get right down to it. Oh, no, you spend 4
You spend 4 to kill a unit with 3 or less.
And it gives experience for each upgrade that was on the unit you killed. They're not going to be that many upgrades on units that are 3 or less in general.
Yeah, so
as a general rule.
I felt like when you started bringing in Sentinels with shields, because you were playing Luke in one of the games, Calculated Lethality lost all its value very quickly, and I just was looking at it going, I just wish I had some Vanquishes here, just to get rid of your Sentinels with shields that I'm not really... Because you're trying to take advantage of, overwhelming you with those low hit point units, so they don't really want to be hitting Sentinels with shields. Or
even a takedown would be better that kills any unit with 5 or less remaining hit points for the same cost as Calculated Lethality. I'd take that every day.
So I don't think Calculated Lethality was all that useful. I thought the Pirate Battle Tank was a very cool card, because it is a Sentinel that's 4/6 for 6, that you can smuggle it for 7. So it just meant later in the game...
Back briefly to Calculated Lethality, it does have another use that we didn't get to see, though, and that is if people play negative upgrades on your units, like bounties or something else, you can kill them, that you get rid of the bounty because it doesn't have a negative effect. And then for the bounty that was on the unit, you get to give experience to a friendly one instead. So there's a niche use there, but there's not a lot of bounties being used, really.
Yeah, this deck has some bounties in it, but I didn't actually think they were that useful in the games that I played.
None of the decks I was playing against you with were using bounties, so we didn't get to see it.
I thought the Pirate Battle Tank was one of the coolest cards that I'd seen, just because quite often in the game, having a Sentinel can be the difference between you winning and losing, or surviving that one extra turn that can potentially have you win. And the fact that you could smuggle it in for just 1 more felt to me like it was really nice in the early game to just put some Pirate Battle Tanks down in my resources and be like, I know I've got a really good Ground Sentinel that can just buy me a turn if I need it to. So I like that.
And it would be a card that you wouldn't normally have, because by putting it in resource row, that would normally have been out of play and you draw extra cards, but it's like an extra hand that you don't really normally have access to. So it's definitely useful. Smuggle bugs me a little bit because it's an extra player you've got to remember and keep either looking at, which gives away what's going on, or whatever else. But it definitely has value. Absolutely, if you can keep it on your head.
Gideon's light cruiser, I thought, is a
Yep.
very powerful card, and it had really nice synergy with like that Dart Trooper, which is the new
Yeah.
3-cost 3 Sentinel
Yeah.
that is a very strong card actually for a 3-cost.
Gideon himself working with 3-cost or lower units, and Gideon's light cruiser working with 3-cost or lower units is inherently good synergy right there.
I really liked the heavy fighter card, the Kiraz fighter card, but I felt like the lack of cheap units really had me struggling to take advantage of it. So it's a 3/3, and you can exhaust another unit to get +3/+0 when you attack.
So it'd attack as a 6/3, and it would be overwhelm, which is pretty tasty.
Yeah, so it was just a case of like I never felt like in this deck I had enough low cost units to start exhausting them to do damage. It just never occurred to me. So it was like it was a cool card, but I felt like I couldn't use it. And then the other thing that this deck has, I suppose, is like I think there might be 3 super laser technicians, and maybe it's only 2. Was it 3?
Yeah, 3.
3, but like so. To me, that says this is a ramp deck, and there was another way to ramp as well.
There is.
But like, I really didn't feel like it was a ramp deck. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, by focusing on a lot of units and a lot of low cost units, you really want to be acting with them as much as you can every turn to get all the value out of them. So, giving up a turn or some resources out of a turn in order to play a ramp card, you're losing a lot of action out of that turn that you're doing it. I don't think it goes well, particularly with this deck. I agree.
Yeah, no, so I didn't really like the Super Laser Technicians. So I just put down the Command Villainy Vigilance so we remember what we're looking at.
Yep.
So some of the new cards that I thought might be decent to put into this deck. Rich Reward seemed like a cool one. A bounty where you're just going to give experience tokens to 2 units.
Yep.
Handy.
Absolutely.
There's also the Reputable Hunter, who is a single 3/4 for 3, which obviously Moff Gideon synergizes with a 3. If an enemy has a bounty, he costs 1 less to play, so you can get him in earlier potentially.
Assuming that you're playing a fair amount of bounties, he's absolutely a worthwhile pick.
I liked Embo a lot actually, because I felt like if you did get Embo out, then potentially you could start to use him to keep your other units alive and healed. I feel like you're going to be attacking with him.
If he attacks someone and kills them and they only did him 2 damage, he could heal up himself and just keep going. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so Embo seemed like one of the cards that I was excited about. I like the Black Sun Starfighter, just because Space Sentinels. It's 1 cheaper than the System Patrol Craft, which comes in the deck. But again, this puts it down to 3, which means I can get the Moff Gideon's benefit on it, right?
Absolutely, yep.
Public Enemy, I felt like I could have had like a different one here. I thought about this afterwards. I basically was wanting to shield Gideon when he came out, because I felt like if he's alive and he's buffing everybody, that is really strong. But I think the starter deck has no shields. So I was thinking like a 0 cost way that I can, like, I'm going to be hitting you with lots of low cards, so if I can just get a shield onto Gideon when he comes out, I feel like that could be pretty useful.
Okay, that's fair.
The Quad Jumper I actually really like, because you're going to have a lot of small cards out, but in hindsight I felt like you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's not a unit, you get a +1 token. But I was actually thinking about that afterwards. I was like, I think you'd want to build this deck with lots of low cards, so maybe this doesn't actually synergize.
You want to, like you say, a lot of units, so the synergy is not great on that one.
Overwhelming Barrage, we know it's a really powerful card. Both the aspects are in here. I felt like one of the...
Generally, I'd agree with you.
Okay.
In this deck, I wouldn't. And the reason being is because you're playing a lot of low-cost units, they're not generally high power, and for a 5-cost card, you theoretically want to be playing it on something that you played in turn 4 that has got a high an attack stat as possible to then get the +2 overwhelming barrage and shoot as many things as you can. And because the deck is incentivizing playing low-cost units, you don't really have that many high-cost stuff to play overwhelming barrage on, so maybe it's not the best card.
Okay. I thought Power of the Dark Side was a good card just because you're trying to clear the board every turn anyway, so you
Yep.
could really play this when they don't have much and make
Yeah,
tough decisions for them.
absolutely. If you've taken
Uh,
a few units out with your weenies, and you've left them with only one unit, it could be their leader, it could be whatever. You just kill it with that. Yeah, cheapest removal card.
and I guess the surgical droid, just keeping all units alive. I guess Embo was probably a better pick, but the surgical droid could work.
They're both good at the same thing. I didn't pick it for my version of the Gideon Plus deck on the basis that because we're working with a lot more smaller units and the buff they get from Gideon is to the attack, they're probably going to die rather than take damage and not die. So
Okay.
I think maybe that's not quite the optimal pick here.
I like Del Mico a lot actually because he is going to make your opponent events cost one more resources to play. Again, he synergizes on Gideon with the 3/3, and I just thought like once you get him out, potentially that just means that it's harder for your opponent to play removal cards, which is going to be like your nemesis of this deck.
So
right?
I considered him as well, but I wrote him off from my list of improvements solely because he's a rare. I considered only things that were starter cards, common or uncommon for mine.
Okay. I like the Wookiee because he's cheap again, synergized with Gideon. He's going to get stronger. And he's a new card that I guess I've never seen before.
Yeah.
And I guess the Wookiee's kind of interchangeable with the Wilderness Fighter. They're kind of the same card, really.
Yeah.
He gets a shield, but doesn't get stronger. So they're very similar.
Indeed.
Cards I'd remove, right? The cards I really didn't like in this deck. Put the top card of your resource. Put the top card of your deck into play as a resource. So it was like another ramp card priced on your head. I didn't feel like this deck was ramping towards anything. It's only got like it's got Gideon's Cruiser and like one other card that costs more than 5. So it didn't make a
If we're deciding we're not
sense.
ramping and we don't like Super Laser Technician, get rid of all the ramp, which includes that and the price on your head. Totally agree.
And then top target is the one that the very first card we looked at was like Rich Reward, which was give experience tokens as a bounty for one as well. Yeah. And I feel like in this deck I would rather have experience tokens than potentially like a 4 unit or base heal, right? Because like I just want to kill you by 1,000 cuts. I don't want to heal for 4. And it felt like that synergized more with what I was trying to do.
Yep, I agree. I also dropped that one.
So then this is what my deck looked like. Obviously, you can't see the leader in the base. I didn't change those. So I kept the lieutenants. I put in a couple of surgical droids. I kept the shore troopers. The incinerator troopers we didn't talk about, but they're good because they hit first.
Especially if you can beef them with an experience or 2, they become very dangerous indeed, yes.
I kept the dart troopers. I kept some cell block guards. I added Embo a few times. Added Del Mico a few times. Added the Wookiee a few times. I added an extra battleship. Or battle tank, sorry. I removed the system control craft for the Black Sun fighter. I kept the Kairos heavy fighter. I kept Gideon's cruiser in case we get to late game. Like I just want to have him in case we get to late game. Timely intervention. I believe that's the one that lets you attack with 2 units at the same time.
No, that's the one that lets you ambush. You can you play one to ambush with a unit, or you can put it into smuggle to also ambush.
Yes, so coming out for ambush I felt was useful. I talked about how I think Vanquish and Power of the Dark Side could be useful. Maybe you're right, maybe I don't need Overwhelming Barrage and we could swap that out.
Okay. I also strongly considered Timely Intervention, but decided not to, because if I want to ambush things for 1 extra cost to them, they need to be fairly punchy, and if you're ambushing, you can't use that alongside Moff Gideon's leader side buff at the same time.
Yeah.
You can only make use of Gideon's buff after you've been deployed, so the synergy's not great, really.
Okay. And then Legal Authority, I think.
That's a capture card.
That's the capture card. So I think I must have removed the one that let you attack with 2 creatures at once. Maybe that's the green card that I got confused with. What was that one called? The one that let you
Outflank.
Outflank, yeah. So maybe Outflank would have been a better card then than Timely Intervention or Overwhelming Barrage, because I assume that I've never used Outflank, but it means you can just attack with 2 at once, right?
That's right, yeah. For the cost of 1. Yeah.
So especially if you're doing that death by 1,000 cuts and you know your opponent's about to remove some of your cards, the start of the turn being able to just attack with 2 that are like left or 1 hit point your opponent's
generally
remove
it's useful so that you are more likely to be able to take the initiative before your opponent does. But then again, you're at a disadvantage because you're likely to be playing a large amount of small cost characters. So is that going to really enable you to take the initiative? Don't know.
Maybe. But yeah, so that's sort of what I came up with. I tried to take advantage of the Moth's special ability to take over the lanes and win the game quickly. I had a couple of ways to potential clear the problematic enemies from the table. I made it more expensive for your opponent to use events against you. I thought because you deploy them off early and he felt kind of, because I played him against Cad Bane and I played him against Luke, and he did feel a little bit weak against those leaders. So I would have liked to put a couple of shields on him, and I kept like my Star Cruiser in case the game lingers on.
Okay.
So that's what I did.
Fair. Do you wanna have a look at my one now, or should we do a different video in that, or should
I think we should do this as a separate video because that was 15 minutes. I think that's great. And I think if you want to get Mark's take, which is probably going to be better than mine.
Different, certainly. Better is arguable. Better
because you're more experienced. What we'll maybe try and do is release both these videos on the same day, and then that would be a cool thing to. So come back, subscribe if you like this video, and definitely come back to watch Mark's video on how to make this deck even better. It better be better.
We'll see shortly, won't we? Yes.
All right. We'll see you in the next one, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.